Okay, beautiful. Okay, welcome everybody to the awards session, the first awards session. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Gordon Ramsey, the program chair. Helped organize this meeting with the help of many, many, many people, without whose efforts I would not be able to run this meeting. Being the program chair, I'm going to introduce Eileen Strempel, who is the Senior Vice Provost for Academic Affairs at the University of Cincinnati, to have some welcoming remarks on behalf of Cincinnati and Covington.
Thank you so much, Gordon. Welcome, everyone. I am so thrilled and so happy and so proud that you are here joining us in the greater Cincinnati area. I bring greetings from our president, Neville Pinto, and our provost, Peter Langren, but just for me personally, it's a thrill. I am an opera singer by training, but my brother is a physicist. And so we used to always have lots of conversations about waves. It's actually kind of makes me feel right at home to be here and could not be more delighted. I do want to offer a special thank you to Cathy Cooney. She's been helping to make things happen both at UC and for the conference here, with a full weekend of activities at the university before you all joined her here, but also to the president, George Amon, and your executive officer, Beth Cunningham, and so many others that have worked to make all this possible. When I really started to think today about conferences, you know, we come and our lives are so busy. There's emails, our family obligations, our jobs. But when we come to a conference, it really is a special opportunity to be quiet, to reconnect. My grandmother would always say, come dance with the guy who brought you. But I would say I could actually do exactly the opposite. Meet new people, go talk to them, make new connections, be friendly to the person across the table that you've never met before. You'll make some unexpected connections. And that at the heart of all of our professional development, no matter what our field, is really, I think, to take a moment also not just to think about the resume version of you, your accomplishments, and I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek here at an award ceremony, right? But the eulogy you. What do you want to be remembered for? What do you want to be known for? What's your purpose? And very specifically, what's your purpose and relationship with physics teaching? I was really drawn to the organization and just thinking about it, and a couple of statements I just want to read because I thought they were beautiful. Enthusiastic engagement of students. Not just engagement, enthusiastic. And it says students. There's no modifiers, not like students that look like me, young students, wealthy students. It's all students. So I just loved that. I loved your NSF grant to think about broadening the participation in physics and all the great minds that are helping to do that. And so that, again, is one of the benefits of being at a conference, is the opportunity to change your mind, to have an aha moment, to have the idea that if we truly are going to bring people into physics and let them know how fabulous the world is because of physics and the special gifts that you as physics teachers bring to the world and awaken in hearts and minds and souls, we have to then really think about that moral and ethical grounding of reaching all students. And that's a hard thing to do, right? As a woman, you know, sometimes I notice just very subtle things in language. Some people still call our first-year students freshmen, letting us kind of think that women don't really matter, or they're a later add-on, or coming into a room and saying, hey, you guys, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm so not a guy, right? But the idea that maybe we all have to change in little ways and big ways and profound aha moment ways in order to do our jobs better, to teach with more pedagogical excitement and engagement, to use the wonderful word from your own website. but maybe we need to change how we're thinking about ourselves and what we're doing. So I hope you'll enjoy this richness of a fabulous conference with amazingly talented colleagues. I hope you'll walk away with lots of fabulous memories and moments, but I hope that you'll also have an aha moment, something where you're changing yourself and thinking about the moral and ethical reasons that you do what you're doing, that you reconnect to that with joy and purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Eileen mentioned Cathy Koenig, and she's done a whale amount of work. I mean, in organizing the local aspects of this meeting. And in honor of that, we'd like to present Cathy with a little plaque acknowledging her great efforts in helping us form the local part of this meeting. Those of us at APT did the national aspect of it and so forth, but she really did the work to get everything, all the nitty-gritty together. So at this point, I'd like Cathy to come up. We're going to present a plaque. Thanks for your efforts, Cathy. That was great. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to Janelle Bailey, who is our past president and the chair of the awards committee, to present the rest of the program.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Janelle Bailey. I'm the past president and the chair of the awards committee, and everybody told me, and it's totally true, that this is the reward for surviving 3 years of the presidential chain. Because the first task you get to do when you take over this role is contact award winners. So that was a real delight. So I'm excited to start us off with a great slate of award winners today. We're going to start with the David Halliday and Robert Resnick Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Physics Teaching, which recognizes outstanding achievement in teaching undergraduate physics, which may include the use of innovative teaching methods. The 2017 David Halliday and Robert Resnick Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Physics Teaching goes to Dr. Cindy Schwartz, professor of physics in the Department of Physics and Astronomy at Vassar College. She earned her BS in mathematical physics at SUNY at Binghamton and a master's of philosophy in physics and her PhD in experimental particle physics at Yale University. For nearly 3 decades, Dr. Schwartz has been incorporating innovative teaching strategies into her own classroom and mentoring her colleagues in doing the same. The many techniques that have reformed Vassar's physics courses include such things as peer instruction, use of smart boards, iPads for problem solving, and electronic clickers. She's developed multiple new courses, including those for non-physics majors and one cross-listed with a colleague from the Department of Philosophy. With support from the National Science Foundation and in collaboration with colleagues from the Education Department, she developed the physics teaching major at Vassar. Dr. Schwartz is also a noted author whose most recent book is the 3rd edition of the Subatomic Zoo, published in early 2017, and if you haven't seen it, I know it's in the exhibit hall. The first edition of this book won the American Library Association's Outstanding Academic Book Award in 1992. Adventures in Atomville, the Macroscope, co-authored with Jill Lenz and illustrated by Warren Gregory, is another book aimed at grades 3 through 6 and has an interactive iPad version available. Dr. Schwartz regularly brings students with her to AAPT. In fact, I got a lovely picture with all of them at the winter meeting along with one of our plenary speakers. It was a great opportunity to see all these young women together. And has served on the Committee on Women in Physics and the Committee on Educational Technologies, as well as the precursor but no longer existing Committee on Computers and Physics Education and the Committee on Instructional Media and Computers and Physics. By the way, EdTech, I'm really glad you guys changed your name. She was the president of the New York State section of AAPT and later served as its section representative. In one of her nomination letters, a colleague noted, Dr. Schwartz has, for the past 11 years, been my primary mentor in how best to teach physics at the undergraduate level. She was the first person to make me realize that without interactive methods in my classroom, I would always be lacking a crucial mechanism of student-instructor feedback. Professor Schwartz has similarly been an influence on many other faculty members here at Vassar, and we are very proud of the educational environment that has been crafted here under her leadership. For her outstanding achievement, AAPT is proud to present the 2017 David Halliday and Robert Resnick Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Physics Teaching to Dr. Cindy Schwartz.
Do I speak now?
Yes.
Do I speak now? Can people hear me? All right, great. So first of all, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I've been a member of AAPT for a long time, and so many of the projects that you just heard about, the ideas, have been spawned by talks that I've gone to by other AAPT members, and then I just took off in my own direction and did other things. So today I'm going to talk to you about the Subatomic Zoo and give you a little bit of a taste of what I had some of my students do in a course that I taught at Vassar. So first of all, I developed this course in 1987, which was a long time ago. Vassar has no science requirement, which is, just like shocking these days. We have a quantitative analysis requirement, but that doesn't quite cut it. So I realized a lot of students were leaving without any science, so I thought, let me make a little catchy course that at least some of them might take and give it a catchy title, which I did. And probably over 700, maybe even 800 students have taken this course over the last couple of decades. 3 books came out of that. Couldn't find a picture of the first edition, which is just as well because I hated that picture. That one was published actually by AIP. And then it went to Springer, which was the second edition. And then it went to Morgan and Claypool, Concise Physics series, and that is available here for you to look at. And it's the last version, and it's in color, and it's available also in ebook formats as well. So let me tell you just briefly about the course. Essentially, it's a 6 weeks course. If you're a college professor, and we don't have an upper level particle class for our students, and also just for the courses for non-majors, many people teach physics of music, physics of sound. This is a nice course to give on particles for the interested student who's perhaps majoring in history or philosophy. Mostly I talk about how we make the particles, how we see the particles, we talk about detectors, we talk about applications of particle physics, and I say or not, because when you talk about the discovery of the Higgs boson, you could say, well, what is that going to do for our lives? And of course, we don't really know what that's going to do for our lives. We might find out in 100 years from now that the discovery of gravitational waves or the Higgs boson led to something amazing. What I'm really going to talk about today, and I just wrote down those words that were said at the beginning, enthusiastic engagement of students. And this is really going to be the rest of my talk. I wanted these students to be able to bring in, as they learned the physics, other parts of their lives. So at first I had them write stories and poems, and those have been published into a book, which many of you have, and I do have copies of this, if anybody's interested in looking at it. So at first I got stories and poems with, the electron, and I thought I was just going to get stories like, oh, I'm an electron and I'm just really sad because I'm negative. But the stories that I got were absolutely phenomenal. That later expanded to songs. So I had music majors. I've got piano songs and other songs. And then eventually a play, which I'm going to show you. I did get artwork from some students. They asked beforehand. And I actually got jewelry. I got a necklace that was a particle bead explosion of a particle collision from a student, so as part of their final project. So I'm going to start with a song called the Positron Song. This was written by a music major, Taylor Brown. His website is up there. He's still doing music, so if you live anywhere near him, I think he's in California, he's really a phenomenal musician. So I'm going to play the song. I recorded him playing it on his guitar and harmonica. And the words that you see there are the words to the chorus. And I'm going to request that everybody sing the chorus with me. It only comes up twice. But if I can sing, you can sing. So here we go with Taylor Brown. Hopefully the sound works.
The Positron Song.
Can people hear that?
I am a positron, and very few people know that I exist. I am like an electron with a few strange twists. The electron has a negative charge, so I've got a positive one.
It's very catchy.
The physicists might not tell you, but antimatter is a lot more fun. But electron and I, we've got some things in common. We've got spin 1/2, and our mass is 1/1800th the mass of a proton. Some call me
An anti. Come on. Electron. And I'm okay with that. Just don't call me
a
pion, a gluon, a negative muon.
And boy, I've got my eye on that
Antiproton, sitting over by that nice neutrino.
Come when electron and I become too close. We'll annihilate each other and become particle ghosts. But we will leave our energy behind. And if there is enough kinetic stuff, a proton and an antiproton is something you might find. Paul the Rock, he believed in me when nobody else thought there could possibly be a particle like positivity.
Ready?
Some call me an anti-electron, but I'm okay with that. Just don't call me
A pion, a gluon,
a negative muon. And boy, I've got my eye on that
antiproton,
sitting over by that nice neutrino. Sitting over by that nice neutrino.
So, first I'll tell you, Taylor said this was one of the fun songs, yet strangest songs he'd ever written, but he had a lot of fun with it. And I now have a question for you. So, suppose he does get near that antiproton. Who can tell me what we've got? Thank you. We got antihydrogen. Thank you. Okay. All right, so through the 100-year progression of the course, you know, we go from the atom to the nucleus to the proton. Eventually we get to quarks and electrons, and we're not sure actually what we get from that. So one student wrote a play on views of matter. And this was written by I think he was a history major in 2010. I've put the cast down in order of appearance because I know we all know what Ernest Rutherford did, but some of us may not know what and probably J.J. Thomson. Many of these people won the Nobel Prize. Some of them you may not recognize. So what happened was this play was written by a non-physics student, and my physics majors decided to act out the play and videotape it. This is actually on YouTube. It's on my YouTube channel, which is called The Cindy Beth. So this is a play that you can actually, if you like it, you can show it to your students. It's kind of funny. So I'll put that on. Whoops. And this is...
JJ, my boy, so nice to see you. I trust you've heard the news.
Ah, yes, Ernest, I have. Where are all the Brits these days?
Ah, indeed, but that's not the news I'm talking about.
What's the news you're talking about?
It seems your pudding has been spoiled.
No, not the pudding!
Yes, the pudding. I've put your plum pudding model of the atom to shame. I've smote your plum pudding.
You found that the atom is not positively charged pudding with little electrons in it, like raisins?
Yes, that theory is wrong. You see, I shot some alpha particles out of some polonium and they hit a target. The screen around the target was painted with a material that emitted a flash when it was struck by an alpha particle. That way I could track the locations of the particles as they hit the screen.
Ah, so the alpha particles must have passed through the pudding and must have deviated slightly from the target.
Fantastic guess, JJ. Yes, some of the alpha particles were deflected, but some of them also were reflected in the exact opposite direction they were originally traveling in. This indicates some massive part of the atom, and that massive part of the atom is inconsistent with your pudding, my friend.
So, as if there was one pudding, and then there was many other puddings, and the pressure from all the puddings made this pudding extremely dense and hard.
No, JJ. There is a new model now. The supermassive center of the atom is called the nucleus. It contains all of the atom's positive charge and almost all of its mass. The little electrons fly around in a nearly empty space, and they have negative charge to offset the positively charged nucleus.
Honestly, I didn't see this coming. I could not imagine that you would trivialize my pudding theory. But there is one thing that you failed to do. My contribution to physics still holds. I discovered the electron.
Truth.
Ha! Ah, Chadwick.
Ah, afternoon, gentlemen.
Chadwick, your hair has grown. So who do you think should be in charge of the glory of the atom structure? Me or Ernest here?
James, you are familiar with my plum pudding slaying model, yes?
Why, yes, of course. Although, with respect to your problem, I must confess I am entirely neutral.
So you like the pudding model?
No, it was a joke, JJ. I fear your brain is becoming as dense as a proton, which Ernest and I discovered together, of course. However, in regard to your dispute, no, I am neutral. Just like the other subatomic particle I discovered.
Oh, here we go.
You see, I fired alpha particles at this beryllium target, and they knocked free neutral particles, which then crashed into a second paraffin target, knocking protons away. The neutral radiation was, of course, the neutron, as it must have had a mass close to that of the proton in order to have knocked it free.
Kind of like my pudding model, you know, there must be room for pudding in that.
No, that's disgusting.
Guten Tag. Wow, real meeting of the minds going on here. Except for Thompson, of course. Do you guys remember that pudding nonsense that he spewed back in the day? Thompson, you crack me up.
Wolfgang, you'll have to remind me of what your contribution to physics was. It seems to have slipped my mind, like delicious pudding.
Well, that's not surprising. You see, essentially, I discovered the neutrino, and in doing so, saved the law of conservation of energy. No big deal. You see, there was a particle with no charge and a small mass running off with the missing energy from a nuclear beta decay. It was my discovery of this particle, the neutrino, that saved the law of conservation of energy.
Well, that is nice for you then, Wolfgang.
Konnichiwa. I overheard you guys bragging and thought I would join in. Anyone familiar with my contribution? I use the range of the strong force to accurately predict the presence, mass, and charge of pions.
Truly fascinating.
I heard that, Hideki. He lies, everyone. It was I who discovered the pion in 1947, in England no less. It was a proper discovery, very proper. But your results only confirm the correctness of my predictions. Do you think you would have discovered the pion without my calculations? I don't know. Oh, JJ, I forgot to mention. When I discovered the pion, I noticed they were all covered in pudding.
Huh, the pudding! So you like the theory?
No, it was a joke, JJ. Like your theory, there was in fact no pudding around the pions. 0% pudding.
What's that?
America has arrived.
How do you like them hadrons?
Oh no.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh yeah!
We're your naughty little children, JJ. Except now, we're teaching you.
Oh no, you didn't, Murray.
What did you clowns discover?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say that we discovered our discovery independently, and do the math. That makes us twice as smart as everyone. Secondly, we came up with a theory explaining hadrons, and we gave birth to a new quark model.
Yes, the quark model. It is so complicated that none of you would even understand. Well, you would, Murray. But the rest of you would never even understand that quarks come in different flavors. They come in 3 flavors: up, down, and strange.
I understand, Murray and George.
Witten? How is Witten here? He's not even dead.
Indeed, but neither are you, and Murray, you're not dead either, so wipe that astonished look off your face.
Who is this robotic yank?
I'm Edward Witten, the world's current leading physicist. I have proposed theories such as string theory and M theory, and I'm in search of the world's smallest subatomic particles. My research indicates that there may be 11 or even more dimensions. Given my super powerful brain, I am free to travel between them. This is dimension 7. And now I'm going to leave, because if I explained any more of this to you, well, you just wouldn't understand. But before I go, where's my pudding? I thought I left it in this dimension. Ah, here.
No,
Give me my pudding.
No!
I have to say that those last 2 students weren't even physics students. They got those girls to just help out. So clearly they had a lot of fun putting the play together. They probably ad-libbed a little bit of it. But it's a great thing to, like I said, it's up on YouTube, and it's a really nice thing to talk about, to show the views of matter over time. And again, this was a really nice engagement, both of the student who wrote the play and the other one. So I'm going to, oops. I think what I'm going to do instead, I was going to talk to you about the debate project, but I think I would rather, since that was so fun and funny, read you something that shows that the students who did this really put their lives into these stories. So I have one story in here, and I have to find it. It's by a student named Basim Al-Haddad. It's called Jailbreak. Let's have to find it. Page 19. So on a slightly more serious note, students wrote about, psychology majors, for example, wrote about the 2 protons and 2 neutrons in a helium atom who weren't getting along, and they went to see a gluon mediator to help them. And one of the neutrons was seeing a weak force mediator on the side, so there was those kinds of things. But this one's a little more serious. So this was written in 1995, which is way before 9/11, by Basim Al-Haddad, and he was a history major. And I'm going to read you just a little bit of it, but you can tell that that's a foreign name. And again, this was before 9/11. Billy was a stranger in a strange land. He was living in a country dominated by the proton race, and he was an electron. It was impossible for him to fit in, and his coworkers always made fun of him because his mass was smaller than that of the protons. One cold winter night, he was walking home with his friend, the neutron Tammy, who was also an immigrant. They were laughing, etc., etc. Soon, the police arrived, and the protons claimed that they were trying to make a citizen's arrest. Essentially, Billy Electron was arrested for violating conservation of energy. So we all know that that's not something that you can violate. Yet, this is a story written by a kid who, obviously, even back in 1995, felt either profiled or pulled his life into the story. And it was a very, very meaningful story. A lot of the stories in the book, the kids brought their lives in. One was the New England Neutrons playing the Pittsburgh Protons. That kid was probably watching a football game while writing his paper. So anyway, but what happened with Billy is he was in jail, and he traded cigarettes for batteries and eventually built himself his own little particle accelerator and zipped himself out of jail. So I'm gonna end there, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you. How I deliver the content of the course so that they learn this, right? So, you know, I don't remember what I did before I had the book, quite honestly, but I do use the book, and I have a series of PowerPoints that I, you know, present the material mostly in a we do a mostly historical presentation. I'm very careful not to always show the right path for the physics, like they just knew there were pions and they went and found them. So I do show a lot of the process of science, and I also show the mix between theory and experiment. And so it's mostly lecture format with a little bit of interaction on the content. And it's only I only have 6 weeks, and so really 5 weeks to deliver the content, and then they do these you know papers and presentations. And I have to say I probably have over 600 papers, but I picked the best ones for this book, and I had to do very little editing on the physics. Physics was right, you know? If an electron married a proton, they had the right kinds of babies. Also, to anybody within any driving distance of me or whatever, I'm willing to come and speak about this project, so, and the other things that I've done. And I'm giving a talk tomorrow on publishing books, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about my children's book, which I also have out in Spanish. And if anybody's interested, I'm looking to donate the Spanish version. It's grades 3 through 5. So since I have a big audience right here, if anybody knows of any school districts that have a high Spanish-speaking population and wants a donation of the children's book or just wants to see it, just find me and please talk to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Next up, we are going to talk about the Paul W. Zitzewitz Award for Excellence in Pre-College Teaching. Established in 1993 and then renamed and endowed in 2010 by Paul W. and Barbara S. Zitzewitz, the Paul W. Zitzewitz Award for Excellence in Pre-College Physics Teaching recognizes outstanding achievement in teaching pre-college physics. J. Mark Schober is the 2017 winner of this award. Currently a science teacher at Trinity School in New York, New York. He earned his bachelor's degree in physics, mathematics, and theater arts, I'm seeing a theme here, from Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota, and master's degrees in both physics and secondary education at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. Schober has been a strong proponent of modeling instruction, leading numerous workshops of various lengths across the country. One of his attendees noted that Schober's modeling workshops, quote, rank at the top of the professional development that I have experienced in my 47 years as a teacher. The electricity and magnetism workshop was so powerful to me that it caused me to completely reformulate my course at my school to conform to the structure of the workshop. Schober's teaching career began at John Burroughs School in St. Louis, Missouri, where he quickly became involved in the St. Louis area physics teachers group and later helped formalize the structure to become an AAPT section. He served as president of the American Modeling Teachers Association and is a founding member and past chairman of STEM Teachers New York City. At Trinity School, Schober teaches physics, engineering, and astronomy, as well as advises student groups. He promoted a shift to the physics, chemistry, biology course sequence and employs standards-based grading with his students. He's previously been recognized with the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching in 2007, and the Gene Fuchs Award from the St. Louis Area Physics Teachers in 2009. AAPT is proud to present the 2017 Paul W. Zitzewitz Award for Excellence in Pre-College Physics Teaching to Mr. Mark Schober. We did all the pictures beforehand. It's a little easier this time. Mark.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey, the AAPT Awards Committee, my students, nominators, and all of you from whom I have learned so much. We can accomplish so much when we have each other's help, and so many instrumental people that have shaped my teaching career have not yet received this award. So I hope you'll join me in nominating the teachers that have influenced you for the Paul W. Zitzewitz Award for Excellence in Pre-College Physics Teaching. So workshops are an excellent venue for sharing expertise. This obviously is not a workshop, so don't expect me to share much expertise. Instead, I've got some stories that will tell a little bit about professional learning communities, modeling instruction, standards-based grading, and I hope some of those stories may pique your interest to learn more. It's easy to imagine that our professional careers are something that we choose and we design ourselves, that our choices and decisions build our careers. But it seems to me that our paths are much more like Brownian motion, where countless interactions with other people, sometimes obviously but often invisibly, are what push us in a particular direction. So throughout this talk, I'll ask you to remember some of those people that were influential in your life. So here's the first one. Think about the experiences and people who first opened your eyes to the world of science. I hope you're thinking some happy thoughts right now. In my case, my parents ran a newspaper in southern Minnesota where I was surrounded by technical wonders. A 3,000-pound paper cutter with a massive flywheel that rumbled the building as it spun. The temperamental offset printing press infused with the smells of ink, oil, quick wash solvent, and gum arabic. The old trays of movable type and the heavy lead linotype slugs. The 14-foot-long flatbed camera with one end in the darkroom where the funky smell of developer contrasted with the sharp smell of the fixer that slowly accumulated silver ions the more it was used. The clanky 9-foot-tall linotype on its way to the scrapper, and we even had a hand pump for drawing water in that building until my parents rebuilt, remodeled, and replaced the ancient building's utilities and walls, allowing me to fully be involved in all of the fixing and maintenance process. At home, we maintained a huge yard and garden, planting, weeding, watering, and noting what grew well and what didn't. Harvest included lots of cooking, canning, and freezing, work that we enjoyed as little tastes of summer throughout the long Minnesota winter. Mom and Dad were not scientists, but their scientific curiosity and inventiveness around physics, chemistry, biology, and ecology, as well as their dedicated service to the community through the newspaper, created a formative environment for me that made science and teaching almost inevitable for me. No doubt most of us see teaching as service, And I'll bet that those who shared their time freely with you and their expertise with you are still some of your favorite people. Wayne Johnson and Tom Butterfield helped me learn how to lead others in Boy Scouts while using their vacation time to take us camping in the Minnesota boundary waters. Who pushed you out of your comfort zone? Leo Morgan endured my unending questions as I learned woodworking and industrial technology with him. Who had unlimited patience for you? Bob Stevens taught me acting, singing, and technical theater. Who assigned you a task and said, "Figure it out"? Gladys Myers, who was in that previous photo, way in the back, taught me how to run that cantankerous printing press at the newspaper. Who was your all-in-one tutor, troubleshooting manual, and personal support? Band director Bert Svensson helped me build sets for 4 community theater productions. Who kept you going on big projects asking, "What's next, boss?" Professor Mark Gailey helped me to understand physics with a sense of humor. Who helped you keep things in perspective? Professor Orv Haugsby taught me to love differential equations and took me on a month-long mathematical exploration of Europe. Who showed you what math, science, and art all have in common? College roommate and fellow physics teacher-to-be Eric Kozer and I road tripped to Boise, Idaho in 1993 for my first AAPT summer meeting. At the meeting, Eric's dad, John Kozer, introduced us to everyone and made us a part of this community. Who stood by your side and who welcomed you in? My point is that these nudges of shared expertise shape us even more than our conscious decisions. I went to grad school up the road from here at Miami University, where I worked with Jim Poth and Beverly Taylor. And Dr. Taylor involved me with the Teaching Science with Toys program, and I still use toys throughout my teaching today. But most of my time was spent working with Dr. Poth. I assisted him in teaching 2 courses where we tested draft versions of tutorials in introductory physics and physics by inquiry. Jim and I would frequently have lunch together and go over every line of the curriculum. Why is this question being asked? What is the student concept that's trying to be uncovered here? What are the key questions that should be asked at this checkpoint? Jim gave me a sense of how you could teach in a rich teaching environment by asking good questions. Jim also encouraged me to make a presentation at the Ohio section of AAPT on my graduate work in assessing student understanding of electricity and magnetism. I didn't have very many dramatic results or anything, but Dr. Poth pushed me into that world of sharing with other teachers. Pursuing a teaching position in St. Louis, I met Bill Brinkhorst as he led an AAPT Make and Take workshop with Val Michael. Who took you under your wing? I had skilled, generous colleagues in Bill and my office mate, Jerry Taylor. But even with that, I still struggled as a new teacher, recognizing that the wonderful materials I had worked with in grad school were just not suited to high school students. I borrowed extensively from my colleagues without really knowing how to use their materials to serve my students best. In my second year of teaching, I was encouraged to apply to a professional development program called Modeling Instruction, recommended by Rex Rice. Who was looking out for you, suggesting professional opportunities that you didn't even know existed? I committed to 2 summers at UC Davis under the guidance of Don Yost, Wayne Finkbeiner, and Jeff Hengesbach, and it was just what I needed. The multi-week modeling workshop placed participants in student mode, where the workshop leaders guided us through labs, problem solving, and lab deployments as they would with their own students. We represented problem solutions on great big dry erase boards and presented them to each other, fielding inquiries and Socratic questions from fellow participants and the leaders. Despite our degrees in physics, we found that we often hid behind terminology or algebra. The immersive experience allowed us to relearn physics content, practice new pedagogical approaches, and discuss common student issues. We turned away from a topics-based approach to physics and started thinking about how to use lab data and multiple representations such as graphs, diagrams, equations, and words to develop the underlying and unifying models of physics. Modeling gave me a practical framework to implement an instructional philosophy that built upon my prior experiences with Dr. Poth. The sample curriculum was editable and adaptable to my students' needs. The modeling instruction community, born out of the intense process of questioning everything we thought we knew about teaching, formed committed bonds that we thought with our fellow teachers. We believed so strongly in keeping modeling instruction going that we formed the American Modeling Teachers Association to promote, strengthen, and train teachers in modeling instruction. I've led scores of workshops and worked with the most wonderful teachers across the country and beyond in the process. I served as AMTA's president, and now I'm back on the board as we strive to fulfill our mission while staying true to our grassroots origins. And there are a number of in-depth professional development programs for high school teachers like modeling, and I hope that you have connected with one. My teaching before and after I started modeling is the difference between playing notes and making music. Of course, we should all be attentive to our students' feedback because any one of them has spent more time in our classrooms than any adult ever will. So once I started modeling, I asked my students, what happens in our physics class that helps you to learn well? One student said, I like how we work in small groups, then share our work with the rest of the class, and we all give each other beneficial comments. Another said, when we work through problems as a class and different groups present them. Also, when we're shown physical and drawn representations of different ideas. Third said, completing labs helps me to understand the math behind the material and helps me to have a greater understanding of the physics by seeing it firsthand. In St. Louis, I was warmly welcomed into the St. Louis area physics teachers, a group of mostly high school physics teachers that got together about once a month in each other's schools to share a workshop on some aspect of physics teaching. Physics teachers are rare enough that we really need local professional learning communities to find peers beyond our schools. Here, I learned from my peers while also being encouraged to share what was going well in my classroom. We learned from each other and we shared with one another. I hope that you've been able to find a local professional support community, but these are still few and far between. For example, when I moved to New York City, I looked forward to finding the equivalent of the St. Louis area physics teachers, but to my surprise, no such organization existed. My new colleague, Nate Finney, had just completed his program at Teachers College, Columbia University, and he suggested that I talk to his science education professor, Fernan Brunschwig. Fernan was also interested in forming a teacher group, and he started reaching out to other teachers. We offered a weekend workshop that attracted enough people and produced enough momentum to run a series of workshops throughout the following year. It quickly became clear that Physics Teachers NYC was too limiting a name for the diverse group of teachers we were attracting, so we rebranded ourselves STEM Teachers NYC. 5 years later, our Google group has 800 members. We run about 20 weekend workshops a year. We've hired staff, and we form partnerships with AAPT, AMTA, and other organizations, enabling us to offer extensive summer workshops for teachers, by teachers, about teaching. It's hard to imagine starting a group like STEM Teachers NYC, especially without Fernand and his professional fundraising spouse, Jennifer Herrig. But an all-volunteer group like the St. Louis area physics teachers has pretty straightforward ingredients. Gather some teachers together in the same space, ask each teacher to introduce themselves. I have no idea what this is. Cindy, what did you do to your computer? I don't think it's just closing that one. I muted her thing.
The PC's unplugged.
Yeah, because there's no audio connection, so it must be coming through something else.
Hold on, yeah.
Say it again. Yeah, I muted this, and so we muted it. We unhooked the sound, so it might not be coming from the computer at all. All right.
Let's just keep that from happening again, though, real quick. Let's just hit the mute button, and it should take care of it.
All right. All right. Woo. All right, so here's how you start a physics teacher group. You gather some teachers in the same space, you ask them to introduce themselves, and you make sure that you're...
Okay, then.
Call Kevin and tell me to come to Halliday. Sorry about this, guys.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I'm really...
It's up to you. You know, it's stopped now, so if you want, let's change it out real quick.
All right.
When I push this in, it's going to flash, so. Like I said, sorry about that, man. I don't know what.
All right. There we go. Hey, yeah, we're almost to Kelly here. Okay. Okay. We got the Imperial March going on. No, it's not about the slides. Is this something going on in the exhibit hall with like a Tesla coil? It's broadcasting, music? This sounds like physics going on here. I'll bet you it is. How cool is that? All right. Well, that was fun. Yeah. So again, I encourage you, if you don't have a professional development community, to find one, to form one. And the best way to do that, gather some teachers together, get them to introduce themselves, get them to say something that's going well in their classroom. That's all you need to do. I mean, you can add coffee and donuts if you like. But what you want to do is you want to note that those teaching practices that are really of interest to you and start building workshops around them. It's worked in St. Louis for over 30 years. Sometimes the expertise that people share with you is less like a little nudge and more like getting hit with a truck. We've got Harry Potter going on now. I mean, this is all the good tunes. All right. So, I guess I can try and... We'll just do our best here. So Seth here, we had dinner to go and talk about an upcoming STEM Teachers NYC workshop, and I asked him, can you tell me what this standards-based grading thing is all about? And Seth, in his very Seth kind of way, said, yeah, sure. I'll give you an analogy. You know, we're here eating dinner, and if you get that credit card receipt, it's just got like a number. It tells you how much money you have to pay for what you got. But it doesn't tell you what you paid for, none of the details. That's what you need an itemized receipt for. And when we grade students, and if we just give them like a number or letter grade, it's like that credit card receipt. It's not an itemized receipt at all. And so if what we did in standards-based grading, we'd want to provide itemized feedback according to the learning objectives so that it helps keep the instruction focused and helps the students to know exactly what they need to do to be successful. And further, if a student has trouble with the concept, they can practice and try again. I looked at Seth and I took a deep breath. I had a lot of work ahead of me. He was right. This would serve my students better. I had been hiding behind a false sense of objectivity with points-based grading, and I still couldn't really say what concepts each student did and didn't understand. Further, like learning a sport or an instrument, mastery requires sustained practice, specific feedback, and room to make mistakes. I wanted to provide that in my physics assessment. So I became sold on the idea of standards-based grading, but I was daunted by the logistics. But then I got the nudge I needed from meeting Kelly O'Shea. She talked me through a manageable system of keeping track of all the student data, so I jumped in with both feet, and it made a monumental shift in my teaching. My old tests were walking that weird line between being too long for students to finish or having so few items that if a student missed a single item, that would kind of tank their grade on the test. So now I use a series of quizzes that have generally a single problem on them that are rich, robust, multifaceted questions that really make it clear what the student does and doesn't understand. Kelly describes standard-based grading assessments as low stakes, because you can try again, with very high expectations. So I asked my students to describe our system of assessment and how it impacts their learning. One student said, I really, really love this system, especially because with retakes, you're constantly having to remind yourself of old material and everything is cumulative. Another said, in physics class, I can feel that it is okay to make mistakes because Mr. Schober encourages us to try our best and work on our weaker strengths, whatever weaker strengths are. Another said, suddenly it's not about me and how smart I am, but what I know. And another, I enjoy it because it's very low stress. Instead of worrying about each assessment being a grade set in stone, I can consider it a learning opportunity and a way to prove what I understand. We all share our expertise with our students and our children. That's our job. But I hope I've illustrated how important sharing an idea with another teacher can be. And I make this really as a plea because 75% of the nation's high school physics teachers aren't connected to AAPT. And you, by being present at this summer meeting, are the 1%. Further, 2/3 of those teaching physics don't have a physics degree. These non-AAPT physics teachers are wonderful people that mostly came to us from the other science. Physics got added to their teaching load because some administrator looked at them and said, "Oh, you teach science, teach physics too." We can be an extremely valuable resource to this large population of physics teachers. In fact, most of you could lead a whole variety of workshops in a heartbeat. For example, student activities for developing a particle model of light, or teaching electrostatics with sticky tape, pie plates, soda cans, and foam cups, the MacGyver approach to physics instruction. Teaching energy graph bar representations, or as the kids call them, LOLs. Or using labs to introduce a concept. From the holy book of Arnold Aaron's Concept First, Then Give It a Name. Or say a make and take workshop to send participants away with lab or demo equipment they can use. Such workshops would benefit those new to teaching or have physics as their fourth prep, or anyone else looking to sharpen their content knowledge and teaching skills. No matter the topic, sharing your expertise locally is vital to improving physics education nationally. There are also workshops that maybe only a few of you could lead, and if you're one of those teachers, please share. Such as, how do I go beyond "I treat all my students equally" to how can I best meet the diverse needs of diverse learners in the physics classroom, acknowledging that not all students need the same attention because of the inequities in our society. How do I teach physics as part of a unified STEM experience for my students? And how can I work with my colleagues to make this really happen? Or what can I do in my physics classroom that helps students transfer physics skills to a greater science awareness and scientific literacy? I hope during my ramblings and our lovely musical interludes, you've had a chance to daydream a bit, and that you are reminded about how much you have to share and how much other teachers need what you have to share. Thank you for this award, and to all of you who have shared so much with me. Keep sharing your expertise so that your ideas outlive your teaching career in the teaching practice of others. Thanks to Jerry Taylor, to Jim Poth, and to Paul Zitzewitz for doing exactly that.
Because of the interruptions, I'll take one question if anyone has any.
Have a lovely meeting, everyone. Enjoy.
If you enjoyed our musical interludes, please stop by the pirate booth later on and see what it was they were playing. All those tunes were recognizable to any good geek. So stop by, say hello, see what they were doing. We call this session to a close. Thank you. Really sorry. But it sounds like they were just, it was interference with the sound system is what it sounds like.
Right.
Whatever
They were broadcasting.
It was not you. Yeah,
That
they
was
were.
not my computer. I was like, I played some music, but it definitely wasn't that.
I went back there and they were like, I have no idea even what that noise is. I was like, oh, those are songs I recognize. All the songs.
Exactly. They're going to name that too.
David, forgive me for coming up on the stage here. It's rare that I know both of the recipients of these awards.
I
Congratulations.
need my
to both of you.
plug.
Oh, did you get your parts?
This, my
Oh yeah, you got your
plug.
power.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. How are you?
I'm not at all surprised. Either of you is.
Do you know what he did with the HDMI adapter? A little silver